Girl, we added a full-length couch to the office, and now the, workday naps are epic.
Yeah. They're so epic that you're, texting me that you're doing them.
I'm going to the 10th floor. I'm going to take a real long lie down, okay?
And I'm like, well, good, because the Saturday traffic is really lots of pizzazz, so sleep tight.
Hi, Julia Benzuali.
Hi, Patrick Hines.
Happy Thursday, everybody.
Yes, that's right.
Welcome to our bonus Dateline episodes. Keith is on fire in this one.
I know. I keep wanting to say surprise, but we've been doing this for several weeks. But if you're just joining us, surprise.
Oh, my Lord. You guys, if you want more Jillian and me, and I'll say it for the first time in a little while, who could blame you? If you're looking for more us, join us on the Patreon. We're approaching 300 full ad-free bonus episodes. I got to tell you one thing. It's searchable. So if you're like, I want to join the Patreon, but I want to start with Tiger King, or I want to start with Cereal.
Sure.
You can go to the search bar in our Patreon page, and it'll take you right to those episodes, girl.
That's very helpful.
Yeah,
that's very helpful.
We are also adding a page to the website that's going to put everything in order. You'll see all the series we do, plus all the interviews we've done with Asia and Rabia and the director of Tower and Sky Borgman. We're going to categorize everything to make it. We know we're getting to a point where there's lots of content on the Patreon.
As my mom would say, it's a little much. It's a little much, but in the good way. In the good way.
Never enough, Barbara. At the same time, God damn it.
And somewhere she's like, I know. I'm so sorry. I know.
Also, join our Facebook group, you guys. It's where you can go if you want to be the first person to know about merch, about live shows, about anything we're up to, really.
Yeah, or discussing Keith being savage.
All right, let's get to it. Let's get to it, you guys.
Okay, this episode is called Vanished. This coming up on is wild. It is absolutely wild.
A young nursing student disappears.
She was still dressed in white hospital scrubs. Something drew her out to her car.
The cousin she grew up with, the brother she raised, desperate to find her.
They were able to do what a lot of other families have never been able to do.
Text messages, security monitors, surveillance video. Were they signs she was trapped, reaching out for help?
One of the things I was so angry about was that nothing made sense.
Moment by moment,
Can we take a look at this?
Dateline was there for every turn.
There's blood wiped across here.
Was she missing or murdered? Was this the key?
I will take your life and hers.
A threat, a voice seething with hate and rage.
You deserve to die for your lies. It's your last and final one.
All right, here we are, you guys. We're going to go through this part as quickly as we can because it's a little long. But here's what you need to know. So it's the San Francisco Bay Area. It's May 27th, 2011, 6:55 p.m. And a young nursing student named Michelle Lay, L-E, walks across a footbridge from a training she's doing into a parking garage. And we learn quickly that, she's still at work, Michelle. You're not supposed to be there, girl.
For reasons unknown and without permission, she has left her post at the hospital. Here, she walks to a white Honda CR-V, just out of camera range. Then, 7:17 p.m., here is Michelle's Honda leaving the garage. But why? Why then? Just an hour or two before the end of her shift? Good questions. Questions about to engulf a whole family.
Keith says an hour or two. I'm like, could you narrow it down, Keith? Could you get a time? If Rabia can get Dawn's time card from fucking LensCrafters,
I know.
You can get it from the hospital,
and
Keith.
He's all about specificity in this episode. And I'm like, so don't fail me now, where it's too early on. So then by 8:56 p.m., we're in the same place, the same parking lot. Michelle's nursing instructor is seen with a security guard. And Keith's like...
Michelle's nursing instructor, annoyed, baffled, worried by her absence, takes a security guard to the parking lot to look for her car.
They came looking for her. It's cool of them to be like, that bitch went out for a smoke break and never came back. And at first they're pissed, but now they're like, we gotta go make sure she's not dead in the parking lot, essentially.
Right, there are cameras everywhere. Yeah. We might be on Dateline.
Right.
So by 9:05, Michelle's car comes back into the garage, but it's 2 floors below. You know those crazy garages that have several floors?
Yeah.
So that's 9:05. 9:06, the car is on the 3rd floor, and this nursing instructor is like, oh my God, Michelle, hi!
Did you go to Starbucks for everybody, Michelle?
Right, because thank you so much. It's getting late. But she tries to flag her down like, hey, girl, hey.
Yeah.
Off camera, the nursing instructor sees it, waves frantically. And the car suddenly stops, backs up, races down the ramp, out of the garage. Alarmed, the nursing instructor calls the police.
The car speeds up and books it out of the garage. And I just have, what?
W-U-T period.
Ellipsis first, W-U-T period.
So the next morning, 400 miles away in San Diego, Michelle's little cousin, she's not little, but like, you know how you say little cousin?
Younger cousin, yeah.
Her name is Christine. She's woken up via text from Michelle's former boyfriend. Now, here's the thing. We hear this former boyfriend is very concerned that nobody knows where Michelle is. I don't know why he's involved. He's the former boyfriend.
I don't know. I don't know why he went to 100, and thank God he did, honestly.
He did. Well, Michelle's cousin is like...
And so I looked at his message and I was like, oh my gosh, what did Michelle do this time? She's usually out, having fun.
She's a fun-loving person, right?
Yeah, and she's always out with her friends and getting lost sometimes. So we thought, I honestly didn't think much of it at the time. I read the message and I rolled over back in bed.
So Michelle gets lost so often that you don't think too much of it. When someone's like, she's missing, it's like, oh, she's probably lost again.
Remember when we were doing the bonus eps last year and we did the Unsolved Mysteries about that guy who would often drive to work and lose his car?
And not know where his car is. And that is what a world. And
then he would take the train home. He'd give up looking for it. Remember that?
Here's the thing. If you're a person like that, you have to accept it. So,
but my question was always, how did he eventually find his car?
I don't know.
It's just a whole lot of new cars.
But it's like you can't waste time being mad or trying to look. You just got to get home.
Because you got to get the 710 out of Penn Station, or else your wife's going to be real mad.
You missed those trains once or twice before you're I'll deal with the car later. I just gotta get home.
So the next person to get a text message is Michelle's younger brother, Michael. Also gets a text from the ex-boyfriend.
And so I go, your ex-boyfriend just trying to get a hold of Michelle. So I didn't pay it any mind, but just in case I wanted to see if she was okay. And so I checked on her Facebook recently, and she had plans to go to Tahoe with some friends. And so right before going to work, I just sent those friends Facebook messages just to make sure she was okay.
This is where we learned that Michelle and her brother and her cousins are all super close.
Yeah, so
there's 800 of them, and they're all very, very close.
Yeah, 15, but yes, it feels like a lot. As an only child, it feels like 800.
And it made me jealous. I'm I'm not close with my cousins at all.
They're all around sort of the same age, because cousins, right?
If somebody texted my cousin was Patrick's missing, they'd be like, the last time I saw him was 1985.
They'd be like, Patrick who?
Patrick who?
Who? But Michelle who? I don't know, Patrick.
With that exact annoyed tone.
Yeah,
Patrick
I don't
who?
have time. What?
No, right.
Spam, wrong number, block. Patrick.
I should call my cousin.
Yeah, give him a call. But Michelle was 26 years old, so she was sort of like the mother figure. She was like the mother hen of this crew of cousins.
So now Christine is trying to call Michelle. Michelle's not answering. And then at 9:30 a.m., this is the next day. This is the morning after Michelle goes missing. They find her car parked outside an apartment building. It's just a couple of blocks from where she was last seen. This is 12 hours later.
Well, yeah, this is not before they try to report Michelle missing right away, and they're told that they have to wait.
This is such nonsense. We go over this on OWD all the time. This doesn't happen as much anymore.
Is it state to state? I feel like I ask you this all the time.
Well, not only is it state to state, it's county to county, and honest
Wonderful.
to God, I'm going to tell you something that's going to make you insane.
Oh, here we go.
It's
okay.
like ethnicity to ethnicity.
Sure.
It's like, you call about the missing white kid? Yes, ma'am, we'll take the report right away.
Yeah.
The missing black kid, you know what? He probably just ran away.
Yeah.
She was a little slutty. That happened once.
Great.
Literally, it was like, she's kind of loose. She's probably just out with some guy.
Remember when you were like, do you want to do a show about missing people? I was like, no. Here, we're living it. We're living it.
It is awe-inspiring, you guys. And in the bad way. I mean, in the bad way.
Yeah. No, I know. So, oh my God. So we meet, Keith says this guy's name differently almost every time. It's either Fraser or Frazier Ritchie.
Can we go with Frazier? It's just easier.
Yeah, he's
a good one.
The case,
yeah.
Right?
Fraser Ritchie was the Hayward police inspector called in to have a look.
The car was locked, it was secured, so that's why we believe that Michelle was possibly somewhere around here. But we had no clue where to start looking.
So the family is now very concerned because they found the car, no Michelle. And they do this about 100 times in this episode. They live in San Diego. They're 400 miles away, which is translates into 8 hours. They all jump in the car and they rush up to where she was last seen.
Right. So now 15 hours missing. And even Christine, the cousin's like,
it was just chaotic, but we weren't thinking the worst at the time.
The energy was there. Was it chaotic? Yes. But the phones were bing, bing, bing. Everyone's texting Michelle. Yeah. They're making flyers already because the cops are like, oh, a Vietnamese woman? No, don't worry about it.
Yeah. And then it's 12:45 p.m., 15 hours after Michelle was last seen. All of a sudden, there's a text from Michelle's phone.
I'm not missing, it read. My phone has been acting crazy. It deleted everything. All these texts have killed my battery. Michelle sent a flurry of reassuring texts to friends and family. I'm fine, she wrote. Just taking it easy.
I'm not missing. has been acting crazy. It deleted everything. And I'm like, okay, those are like 3 different things you're saying.
Those are 3 different things. And like, she's texting everyone back. And my whole thing with this every time is like, we know that you're the kidnapper because it's not a phone call. Like, as soon as you start texting from the missing person's phone, everyone, thank God, is bad at murder. You're bad at kidnapping. You're bad at hiding your tracks.
Totally.
Like, we're always, like, I love that this person is responding from Michelle's phone because it means we're going to fucking catch this person. But what a moron.
And they're giving different excuses to different people. Yeah. All these texts killed my battery, or all the texts were deleted, or I'm fine, just taking it easy, or I'm sick, or whatever. And then when they send to the ex-boyfriend, who is this? Keith goes, uh-oh. Keith, put down the popcorn. There's a missing woman. We got to find her.
But obviously nobody in the family is falling for this, but it does give them hope that maybe she's alive and being held somewhere. Like, at least she's not been murdered, is what they're thinking.
Right. So the family is going to hold on to this. She's alive. We just don't know where she is, but she's alive. And so Keith asked her younger brother, Michael, like, what does that feel like to, have this idea in your head that your sister's been kidnapped? And Michael's like,
it's hard to put into words. Living nightmare, I think, is the closest thing.
Well, I guess, Keith, if I had to describe it, it's like living a nightmare.
I know.
Is that good enough for you?
I know. Does Keith do that thing again with this family where he's like, I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions that make me look like a dick?
Yeah, but
we're going to need it for we need the audio.
Hi, my name is Keith Morrison. I'm going to be playing the role of someone who's new here, so just bear with me.
But so finally, after 18 hours, the family and friends go to meet with this Detective Fraser guy, and he reaches out to her like right away. He like texts her or whatever, and she's like, I'm fine, don't worry about it. And he's like, no, girl, that's not how this works. Like, you need to call me right now. This is very serious.
And Michelle supposedly is like, I wish I could, but my phone's dying. Also, I'm having car trouble.
Right.
Like, you gotta pick a lie and go with it, whoever you are.
Whoever you are. But this is like my least favorite part of all of these missing persons episodes. Let's explore the option she went missing on purpose. The only thing different here is when the family's like,
I had asked, is it possible that she could just be out there, all stressed out? And they said, yes, it's possible.
Actually, yes.
There's a lot of us. There's a lot.
Yeah. She's the mother hen.
Cousins.
She's taking care of all of us. It is possible she needed a day off.
So then they're like, okay, so, she's very smart. She's really focused on her nursing. And they're like, all right, well, maybe she didn't run away. Does she have any enemies?
Which you're like, how could this person have any enemies? And then they're like,
the only problems that she seemed to be having with anybody was coming from Giselle Esteban.
So there's this woman named Giselle, and she was basically part of our family, and now they hate. Well, Giselle hates Michelle more. Michelle's still trying to be friends, but like, imagine if someone asked, like, does Patrick have any enemies? I'd be like, not enough for Dateline to investigate.
Right.
There are people who hate me, people who hate you, but no to like kill me.
Not enough for That's the new threshold, you guys.
Right.
If you know anybody in your life that hates you enough that Dateline might have to ultimately investigate that shit, let's do something about that.
So,
go into witness protection right now.
So the fact that they were like, Giselle, actually. Her name's Giselle. We know exactly who you're looking for at Dateline.
Great name. Like, I do love the name. But we learned the backstory about Giselle and Michelle. Like, they were best friends. Giselle was part of the family. They both moved to San Francisco in 2002 after high school. Giselle falls in love with a very, very handsome guy named Scott.
Yeah.
And they have a baby, and they ended up breaking up 3 years later.
And so now, here's where the drama comes in.
Yeah.
Because our victim, Michelle, she stayed friends with Scott, the ex-boyfriend.
I mean, and here's the thing, like, I don't know. Like, if you broke up with Mike, I'm not staying friends with him. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I'm just saying that, like, Giselle's allowed to be a little pissed about
where
that.
It's like, no, I'm siding with, or I'm picking, yes.
Yeah, and it's like, I knew you for, you know what I mean? Like, I think it's...
I'm not saying friends with him.
Why not? Oh my God, no, like, I'm trying to think of another example. Like, my friends, like, well, no, I probably would stay anyway.
But no, I know what you mean, where it's like your friend, you are friends with the partner, significant other, because of this one person.
And you don't have to hate the person, but your allegiance should be to your lifelong friend. You know what I mean?
I think they were all friends together. I don't know the details of that.
You're really defending Michelle's decision to stay friends with Scott.
Yeah, I am.
Okay, well, that's not what I would have imagined, but I like it.
So the cops call in Giselle because they're like, you're Michelle's enemy. Like, we got to talk to
Best
you, right?
friend / enemy. Good place to start, cops.
Right? But we hear a couple of conversations with Giselle.
Yeah.
And they're like,
we heard about Michelle Lee. Michelle?
Oh, God, what about her?
She went missing last night from her work. We understand that you guys had a tumultuous relationship.
A tumultuous relationship? She was my best friend who slept with my then fiance.
She was my best friend. Well, then she slept with my fiance.
Okay, Well, that would lead any friendship on a bumpy road.
Yeah, and she's like, I don't know where she is. But like the ex-fiance is that guy, Scott, that Michelle insisted on staying friends with, which you're fine with.
Yeah, and Giselle's like, why would I know where Michelle is? I don't even like her. I don't even want to know where she is.
Literally, the first words out of your mouth were, she's your mortal enemy. Why would I know where she is?
Oh, God, what about her?
Oh, God, what about her? So now they go to see Hot Scott, and they are very interested to find out. I thought this was interesting, too. Scott has full custody of his kid with Giselle. And they say, like, the cop Fraser's like...
Listening to him, talking to him, and the relationship with him and his daughter and his family and things like that, he didn't seem to be the type of person that could lie, that would lie.
That's how we got, like, Ted Bundy escaping twice and all these horror... He just didn't seem like the type. Now, thank God, Scott, in my view, I agree.
Yes.
That's, like, one of the only times I'm like,
I agree. There is a moment where we see Scott at a vigil for Michelle.
Yeah.
He looks hot and shifty as hell.
It's right out of Gone Girl.
Right out of Gone Girl.
So the family is super involved in the case. They want all these answers, and the cops are like, we kind of can't do that just yet. We're not going to share all this information with you.
Which makes sense. I mean, like, Fraser says to us at some point, like...
There's certain procedural things that we have to keep close to us that we can't put out there because we have to maintain evidence. We have to maintain the custody of certain information, and it's of evidentiary value to us that if we don't have the suspect in custody, that the only people that know about it is the suspect and us.
They have to keep the information that only they and the killer would know.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like...
You're looking at me like it's a strong disagree for you.
No, because it's so frustrating because it's like you want to get their face and their word out there. Like you want everyone to know as much information as possible, but then the cops are like, yeah, but that could fuck up the case.
And it's like we only have a little information. You know what I mean? Like we can't... Like I mean, I understand that it's agonizing for the family, but I also understand that like the cops have to do their job too.
Right, well, you know when
as long as they're doing it. You know what I mean?
Right, and you know when you could start doing the job? Not 72 hours after someone goes missing.
$1,000,000%.
Like when a family said, like, that's why the family's like, okay, we had to sit on it for 3 days, and they already are starting to do it. So they feel like the cops aren't doing anything, right? Yep. So the family is convinced that Michelle is alive and she's being held somewhere. Yeah. So 8 days after she goes missing, they hold a vigil, which was right near where her car was found.
And this is where Hot Scott, Giselle's ex-boyfriend, is like, we see a shot of him, and Keith makes a note for us. He's like,
quietly attending was Scott, the young man the police had questioned a week earlier, Giselle Esteban's old boyfriend, remember? The father of her child.
And it like pans up to Scott. Scott looks real nervous.
Yeah,
he looks real nervous.
He has his like hands in his pockets.
And he's
the hood is up.
Teeth, yeah.
And he looks like, please don't see me. Please don't see me. Please don't see me. Again, right out of Gone Girl.
I know.
And so like
he's very good looking. Can I say it again?
He is. Yes, of course.
He's very good looking.
Don't let Giselle hear it.
I know.
That's all I'm saying. But
we're gonna record another episode today where I'm gonna not say that 100 times.
Hard agree about Scott. Just saying. And we get the slow zoom. I'm like, Keith. Okay.
I know.
All right, I get it.
Like directly from like the film school of how to make somebody look guilty, for sure.
And it's also like not the best picture because it's just a gigantic group of people. Right, so by the time they zoom in on Scott, it's super grainy. I was like, what is this, surveillance footage?
And I feel like, I honestly feel like they filter it so everybody around him is in black and white and he's
like red. It's like, is that blood dripping off of Scott's face? What? No.
Is he mouthing, I did it?
I did it.
What's happening?
Yeah. So after the cops search the car, the cops take the case from missing person to homicide. And they tell the family.
Not enough.
Not enough. They were like, oh, so we looked at the car. Based on what we found, it's now a homicide. And that's it. Thank you so much. Bye.
They said, I think you have to get comfortable with the fact that your sister is probably dead. We were horrified.
And just like that, the information door closed. But without hearing an explanation or seeing any evidence, how could the family believe the police?
I guess I'm glad they told them that, but the family just doesn't accept it. Like, they are hard. Like, until we have a body, she's out there and we gotta find her. And, like, that's a double-edged sword because you have to imagine they're like, oh my God, she's still alive and maybe that's great, but also she's being tortured every minute that we can't find her.
Right, like the clock is ticking. Yeah. We have to get her. And the cops, according to the family, are doing absolutely nothing to help this case.
Yeah, and so Michelle's family, they're Asian Americans, and Christy, the cousin, is explaining to us, we were of two trains of thought here.
Yes.
The young people among us were like, all we can do is go public. Like, that's the best thing we can do for this case. And the older people in the family were like, no. We don't talk about this. This is personal. It's private. We don't want to go public. But the kids are like, fuck that, you guys.
In Asian families, when you're younger, you're supposed to be very, very respectful of the hierarchy in the family. Mm-hmm. You're not supposed to boss anybody around. But I was just livid. I was so angry.
So the younger kids are like, sorry, elders.
Yeah.
We're taken to social media. They basically do like a press tour. The younger cousins are everywhere. They're talking about how Michelle is alive. We need your help because we need to rescue her.
Yeah.
She's been kidnapped. The cops are lying. Like, they're doing press conferences saying the cops are lying and they're not telling us anything, and we need you, the public, to help us.
And then it goes to commercial, and then it comes back from commercial, and we learn here that there actually was one surveillance camera right above Michelle's car that would have shown us fucking everything, and it didn't work.
It was the one camera that wasn't working and the one camera that would have solved it immediately.
This is the only time I agree with the death penalty. Like, who was in charge of this and put them to death?
Don't you feel personally attacked by this?
Because I also think that, like, did the killer know this? Did the killer know that the camera wasn't working? Or did they just assume that they would get caught immediately and they didn't care?
I know.
Like, how did the killer get that lucky?
It's too perfect. It's too perfect. You know how I'm saying the word perfect.
Yeah. Like, you love it, and, like, you're glad it happened.
God,
That's
you're
what
going
you
to
mean.
edit me. I am happy about death. No.
No, it is, but it's like, it just seems like too weird of a coincidence.
I know.
Like, if you're the killer and 24 hours later, you're like, oh my God, I fucking got away with that.
Yeah. And unfortunately, we never go back to it. So we'll never know. 30.
Can't we pass some kind of law?
Yeah.
That's like the surveillance cameras must be working at all times, or somebody goes to the gas chamber.
And then just upload everything to the fucking cloud if you need that memory card immediately.
Yeah. Remember when the cloud became a thing and everybody thought like all their sex tapes were going to be like sent to all their friends?
I still don't understand how my phone knows that I'm close to the iPad.
I know.
Or that, like, I needed the Wi-Fi password the other day, and our phones were next to each other, and you were like, oh, I could just share it. And I'm like, oh, we should be terrified. We should be absolutely terrified by that.
I still don't even really know what the cloud is.
Now, here's something wild, right?
Are you going to say the same thing I was going to say?
Let's see. Let's see.
34 days after the disappearance, Michelle's family contacts Dateline.
Yes.
That's incredible. And here we are.
And I'm like, wait. The family has a direct line to Dateline headquarters?
Probably not. I mean, I would think that there's probably a submission form. I worked for like a wing of NBC News for a year when I first moved to New York. You would get shit like this all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. People guess email addresses and they're all right because it's everybody's first name dot last name at NBC News.
Keith at Dateline.com.
I mean, but at first we're like, Kay Morrison, try them all.
Yeah.
One of them's going to hit. You know what I mean?
Hi, Keith. It's me again.
I know.
Just want to say hi.
I cannot tell you in my life of podcasting the number of like very famous people I've met whose email addresses are first name dot last name at Gmail.
Yep.
Or like first initial dot last name.
Yep.
One time in particular, you and I both were like, this is not safe.
This is not safe. And they're like, well, when you have the same email address for so long, now I have to change
I
the
wasn't
email.
always famous.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And it's like, oh, right. That's a good point.
Yeah,
Gmail's been around for a long time.
Everyone just assume you're going to be famous and get a really like, just do something like treebark at, treebark14 at gmail.com. That should be everyone's email address.
But then the conversation that comes with it every time, your email's what? Well, it was because I knew I'd be so astronomically famous that I didn't want anyone to contact me before.
Yeah, and then I feel like whoever's responding to me will be like, oh, that tracks about you.
Right.
That tracks about you.
And then you're forced to actually change your Gmail.
Yeah,
just keep it as your name.
Yeah.
It's just annoying.
Anyway, this family contacts Dateline. Dateline apparently is super interested because Keith is right there.
Right. And because what they want to tell Keith, they're like, Keith, girl, listen, they've hired a PI.
Yes.
PI Michael.
Yeah. And PI Michael is here. PI Michael Fromey. And he's here. He's kind of grumpy.
Yeah. But the thing that's crazy is that Michelle is missing 34 days and they get Dateline immediately.
Yeah.
Because PI Michael, in the middle of his investigation, like on his lunch break, goes to sit down with Keith. He's in the middle. Like this, because then we see Keith later, like this, like later on, oh, Dateline was there to capture this. Like, wait, Dateline follows this story as it's happening.
It's unbelievable. So PI Mike is saying to us, like, his theory of the crime is that it happened really quickly.
This had happened quickly. This was a public parking garage. People came in and go from that garage all night. Someone was lying in wait. They knew that at some point she'd return to her vehicle. It was a number of hours before her shift was going to be over, and they were prepared to abduct her at that time.
He's saying that, like, nobody knows why she went to her car, but he just assumes that she was lured out there, like, on a break.
Yeah, because they assumed that she planned to come back because all of her belongings were left at the hospital.
Yeah. So everyone is saying this had to be somebody that she knew.
So the family keeps raising reward money because they're all about talking to the public.
Money really talks. Like, this is a thing that, like, again, working on a lot of missing, I don't work on missing persons cases, you guys. Like, knowing about a lot of missing persons cases, like, the more you make the reward, the more likely you are to get tips. $100,000 they get it to. That's a lot of money.
And a lot of it is from themselves, and a lot of it's from private donations. But, like, in not a lot of time, they have $100,000. Think about that.
I know.
It's only been about 34 days. It's a lot of time. It's a painful amount of time, but to raise $100,000 in that much, it's a lot.
And it's like, this is where we learn, poor Michael, Michelle's younger brother, is really fucking going through it. And this is where we learn that their mom died of breast cancer when they were really young. And we get this, like, heartbreaking story of, like...
After her mom passed away, she didn't even know what to do at first until she saw Michael in the garage holding something of his mom's and crying. She told me, that was the time I knew it was time to be, a big sister and be a mother figure.
They really feel like if Michelle were here, she wouldn't rest, she wouldn't sleep if this was one of us.
Right.
We gotta fucking find her. And then Keith tells us that, like, time is going on, and of course, public interest wanes. Keith.
I know, and it's like...
Understandably, I think he's...
Yeah, because I don't know, I'm definitely just speaking for myself here, but it's like, I also want to care about this new horrible thing I heard about, and I still care about that other thing, but then this other thing is here, and and then tomorrow there's gonna be another horrible thing to care about, and then I don't sleep for a week, and maybe I should have been a PI.
I know.
Now that I'm saying it out loud.
You would have been a great PI. I believe in you as a PI.
I'm half living that life of just, like, caring too much and up at night and not sleeping great. I might as well...
It's all the downsides.
Like, right, it might as well, like, find someone every once in a while if I'm going to live this life, right?
But we learn about this woman, Carrie McGonigal, and she's got an organization because her daughter was kidnapped and murdered 2 years before, her daughter, Amber Dubois. And so now she runs an organization called Team Amber. We're going to come back to Carrie, but the thing that Carrie does right now is put Michelle's family in touch with a man named Mark Klass. And everyone's acting like we don't know who he is. Like, we don't know that he's Polly Klass's dad. Like, it's very weird.
Yeah, yes, right? Okay.
Polly Klass was one of the most famous missing persons cases of, like, my youth. Like, she went missing in Northern California, and I remember Winona Ryder got really involved, and it was like a big deal.
The minute you see his face, you're like, where do I know him?
Yeah, well, I just know the name. As soon as I knew it was, like, Mark Klass, and he was involved in, like, a missing persons thing.
I went to IMDb for a second. That's how familiar his face was to me, where I'm like, how do I know that face?
The Polly Klass case is a big one, but he now does this thing where he helps families of missing people find their people through these, like, proven scientific methods.
And he's really, really good at it.
And he's real intense, too.
Oh, he's very intense. But Mark meets up with Michelle's family.
I met the family in a dingy motel on the side of the freeway in Hayward, California at about 11 o'clock in the morning, and they were all huddled inside this little room. And I looked around and I said, the first thing you people need to do is get out of this room.
Dark and depressing.
It was horrible.
Yeah, he's like, you're doing this all wrong.
Yeah.
You need a real headquarters. You have to run a goddamn comb through your hair.
You gotta get out of this dark, dingy, gross, smelly room.
Yeah, we gotta get some coffee. We gotta get amped, and let's fucking go. And he, like, hands him
You get the sense that Mark really lives on coffee.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he gets, like, this. He basically hands him a checklist of, like, wait, no. This is what we're gonna do, and I know because I did it.
Yes, and because his method is, like, he says, like, scientifically tried and true. Like, there are certain things that we know.
You have to basically start in the center and work your way out. Following statistics that the vast majority of people that are missing are going to be found, A, within a half-mile radius of where they went missing, or B, within a 5-mile radius of where they went missing.
That's why cops and police departments everywhere, you need to start looking right away. Because
away.
They're not going far.
No,
you know what I mean?
No. Or you can get them before they get far.
Yes, yeah.
You know, but he's saying, like, the people are found. Like, there's a reason for that.
Yes.
And he's like, you start at the middle of their lives, the center, and then you work your way out, and you listen to the numbers. You listen to the science. And Keith's like, ooh.
I know.
Oh, Mark, this is real.
Mark,
ooh,
you're kind of a downer, Mark.
He's like, this is real dismal work you do. And Mark is like...
It's not dismal. No, nothing that we do is dismal. It's hard work. It can be heartbreaking. It can be so sad. But it's not dismal. It's really good work, and it's important work, and there's just not enough people doing it.
No, Keith, no, that's where you're wrong, sweetheart. Yeah. That's where you're wrong. He goes, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
It's atrocious. It's horrifying. Basically, every synonym for dismal, and he's like, but Keith, you know what? It's not dismal, okay?
But he's literally saying, like, it can be very sad, but there's not enough people doing this.
Right.
And that was when I was like, should I quit this and go and work with him? It sounds like work you would wake up every day feeling good about your life.
Yeah, and I understand why he was like, it's not dismal, Keith, because, like, there can can be closure.
Yes,
There can be, like, it's hard work, but we have to do it, and more people have to do it.
Because the only thing sadder than finding out your loved one is dead is not having any answers. And he gets to help them get answers, you know?
Right. So Mark is like...
And the first order of business, said Mark, repair the relationship with the police.
We needed help from the police, and they slowly started to let us know where they thought we should be looking. And when we pressed them, why should we be looking there? Why should we be looking there? They finally said, well, because that's where the cell towers take us.
He says the first order of business is repair the relationship with the police. And I was thinking about our friend Sarah Turney, whose sister's Alyssa Turney. Yep. She had a real bad relationship with the police because she felt like they weren't doing enough. They didn't believe her. They weren't listening to her. And I put like a mental pin in my brain to be like, ask her about that.
Yes, totally.
Like, would she ever have considered going to them and like repairing their relationship?
Yeah. And look, I understand why people just want to say, fuck it, I'm not, you know, whatever.
Because you want to trust that the authorities are doing the right things. And sometimes they are, but other times they actually don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Or you're trying to pin it on the wrong person or whatever, you know?
And I'm going to say it again. It all starts when they're like, can you call us back in 3 days so we can like really take the missing person seriously? That's when it all starts, you know?
Yeah.
So Mark actually gets information from the cops. The cops tell Mark, this private citizen who, yes, is like backed by science, but he's just kind of some guy in the grand scheme of things, you know? They're like, Mark, just be cool. We're going to tell you what the cell records say, which is gigantic news.
They basically say, like, if you are going to go looking in this area, because this is the area where the cell phone records let us know was like the last place the cell phone was, which I'm like, well, why aren't you guys looking there then?
I know.
Why are you sending these private fucking citizens and the family of the missing, and now I guess you're saying probably dead person?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think you're insinuating that she's living in a tent out there.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the hell they were thinking.
Yeah.
So here's the strange journey Michelle's phone took.
This is how the cops arrived at the location where they're telling Mark and the family, if you're going to go look over here. We're too busy. You guys do it.
Yeah.
In the 2 hours after Michelle abruptly left a training session here at the Kaiser Hospital in San Francisco's East Bay, that phone of hers left its indelible footprint through the congested streets of the East Bay. And then it turned onto a 2-lane back road, and then a major freeway, and then it pinged its way right back along the very same route. Back to the parking lot.
Then back to the parking lot, and then remember how she sped away again when the friend's like, hi, we've been missing you. Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
So Mark is like, I'm going to do what I do and put this super serious and legit team together.
And so Michelle's family all like jumps in the car from Southern California again. They drive up to the Bay Area, and we find out that this location that they're going to is this like super vast and rugged like canyon that like experienced hikers can't get through this.
Right.
But like this is where they're saying they need to go look for Michelle.
So it's 49 days missing. These people are fucking organized.
Yeah.
And they also say, and you know what I'm going to say?
This area is a haven for the homeless. It's also a notorious dumping ground.
It's a notorious dumping ground.
I know. There should be no such thing. There should be no such thing.
And the thing
Matt,
is...
give me the floodlights, Matt. That's what we need. That's what we want. Anywhere it's a known dumping ground, it should be a known floodlight zone.
Former dumping ground that is now turned into...
Oh, are you talking about the floodlight zone?
Yeah.
Oh,
exactly.
yeah. For the former known dumping ground.
Yeah, the former... Yeah, we don't even call it that anymore because it's been so long since we've had the floodlights.
It's so bright over there now.
24 hours a day. And do it green. Yeah. Do it green. Solar. Whatever. I don't care. But the thing, like, and the more and more recent the cases are, the more the less I have time for it. Like, is this happening in 2018 and you're still telling me
it's
known notorious? Notorious? You should find somebody there once.
Wait, let me say some words to you and see what your reaction is.
God.
Known sex trafficking highway.
Fuck that.
What was that, the Phoenix Colden episode?
Yeah, it was like, you guys, the world's most famous, like it was a ball of yarn in Kansas. It was the world's most famous sex trafficking
highway.
Super highway or whatever. I'm like, don't give it a name.
No.
I'm not going to capitalize it. Don't make it a proper fucking noun. Just end it. End it.
Shut that highway down.
End it.
Shut it down.
Or just have people, I don't know.
What happened to that highway? Well, it used to be a known sex trafficking super highway. Now we got to walk. You know what? Stop sex trafficking. You get your cars back, America.
Yeah,
how about that?
Now it's like the end of the backlog freeway. Totally. And everyone who goes there has to stop and try to open a backlog rape kit and figure some shit out. That's society's punishment and penance for this shit that we've allowed to continue for decades.
Julian's Law coming this fall to NBC.
And the sound effect is the floodlights.
Yes. So anyway, they're in this known dumping ground / canyon where Michelle's body might be. And they're finding tents that might have bodies in them. There's sleeping bags that they're overturning. They find a set of bones that they send off. It turns out not to be human. But then they find another bone. And you guys, I gotta say, like, as much as Mark Klass's team is like amazing and they're really on top of it, it's the Dateline producer that sees this enormous fucking like thigh bone.
It does look like a thigh bone. Good joint. Hey Ian, come take a look at this for me. There's no other bones around it, which is kind of interesting. It's big. It's pretty big, huh? That's just a really big ball. Looking at a bone from a large mammal.
My dad in his office, because he's a doctor of physical therapy, he would have like the skeleton bones just to show people like, here's what we're working with. And it was like that kind of super white, yellowy, like plasticky feeling that it looked like someone went to my dad's office and just said, I'm going to place this super fake bone here.
I mean, it really, and they're looking at it, they're like, oh shit, that does kind of look like it could be human. They send it off, you guys. It is a human thigh bone. And they're immediately like, well, it can't be hers because it definitely belongs to a male and it's way too old. Like it's been here way too long.
But who is that though?
Are we going to look for 5 seconds?
And I'm like, are we going to test it? Again, just a lower third. Hand it back to that same producer.
Totally.
Can we run 2 tree tests on it? A little something.
Like, take some DNA and put it in some system somewhere. So if someone is looking for their fucking family, like, now we've got a better shot.
Or just say, like, did anyone go missing in this area? We have a femur.
I know.
Oh, my God.
Have any really tall people vanished in the last 10 years?
I know it's exhausting, but you signed up for it.
That's what your
job is to give closure and find people and save lives and just do the right thing. So just do it. I don't care that you're tired. I'm tired every day and I don't do it. Just do it. I'm done. And get those fucking floodlights up while you're at it.
Jillian's got date night with Mike tonight. She looks like $1 million fucking dollars. She's not here for anyone's shit today. Fuck everything.
But I'm right about the floodlights.
Yeah. So then I just have, and now Keith is taking us all the way back, almost to the beginning. And basically, while the family has like decided that she's alive, remember Detective Frazier? His murder investigation has been going full throttle. Like they know she's dead, essentially.
Right, because remember the last time we heard anything from the cops is when they were like, it's a homicide, we can't say anything else. So then we've been following the family who's like, it's not a homicide, it's a kidnapping.
Totally.
So now we're going to go back to that moment in time where they realize it's a homicide.
So it's minutes before midnight, May 28th, 2011. It's 29 hours after Michelle disappeared. And this is where the cops go to see Giselle Esteban, who was Michelle's like best friend, but then mortal enemy.
Because remember at first she was like, why would I know where she is? I don't even like her.
Yeah, and you know what? Fair point, Giselle.
And then she's like, well, of course I've been looking for her because I just want to give her a piece of my mind and tell her to stay away from my daughter. So then we get like a more in-depth conversation with Giselle. It's video and it's down at the station.
Yeah, she's down at the station and like Giselle's not in real good spirits.
She's
like,
over it.
She's over it. She's like laying on the table. She doesn't look well. You know what I mean?
She's got her hoodie on, the hood up, her head's in her hands. Like she's upset, but I'm like, are you upset because your friend or someone you know is missing?
Well, but this is where we get Giselle's side of the story. She's like, look.
I considered her my sister. And then what happened? She made a mistake. Scott made a mistake. And was that when you were with Scott? Or had you guys broken up? Or no, we were still together. They made the mistake twice.
I used to think of her as my sister, but she and Scott, remember Hot Scott, who's the dad of Giselle's kid? They made a mistake.
Who's at the vigil,
Who's
creepily?
at the vigil, yeah.
Yeah, so according to Giselle, Michelle and Scott slept together twice. And Giselle tells us the story. So Giselle was pregnant with her second child, and she goes to Michelle's hospital for a prenatal checkup. And this is like hours before Michelle disappeared. Giselle is placing herself at Michelle's hospital.
Right.
And Giselle says, I saw Michelle from a distance. I was shocked to see her there. And I'm like, really?
At the place where she works.
Like, okay. And then Giselle says to herself, like, girl, keep your blood pressure down or else you're going to lose the baby. And Keith's like, oh, so she had strong feelings. Like, she's so worried. The sight of Michelle is a danger to her unborn baby.
And the fact that she's placing herself at the place where Michelle went missing like hours beforehand is like kind of shocking to the cops. But they're also like, she's like a little woman and she's pregnant. Like, there's no way she could murder this woman and dispose of the body by herself, right?
Right.
So they let her go.
Right. And so now Keith is with this Inspector Richie guy to check out Michelle's car. And Keith's like, I feel a little gross about this. It feels like a violation. I don't like it.
Here, the morbid sense we were somehow violating a sad and very personal space.
We're continuing with the timeline. Like later that night after the cops interviewed Giselle, this is when the cops go to Michelle's car and they look inside.
Once we get the car open, you can see there's blood wiped across here in the plastic, a little bit on the floor mats, and then as you can see there's more droplets or blood dropping down going in a straight down pattern.
Police also found some blood smeared on the floor of the garage where Michelle's car had been parked.
Remember when they wouldn't tell the family why they thought she was murdered? This is why.
This is why.
They're like, there's blood everywhere.
Everywhere. And so they're saying, like, okay, so Michelle was attacked in her car.
Yeah.
It was really violent. It was really physical.
Yeah.
And there's an ID card.
Yes.
From Michelle's nursing school, but it's not Michelle's.
And this is a little bit confusing at first, but what happens is the cops call the nursing school and they're like, hey, we have an ID for this woman. Do you know this name? And they're like, yeah, that's a teacher we just hired. We made an ID for her, but it got stolen. And this is where Keith explains to us that this ID is also like a badge that you can use to like scan yourself into a building.
Right. So this is actually very cool, and I'm assuming a pretty underrated moment.
Yeah.
This is how Dateline does it.
Here's the thing about these identity cards. They are actually key cards. This is mine at NBC here, and whenever I'm in the headquarters building at 30 Rockefeller Plaza, I use them to swipe the key card on that little box there. It makes an electronic recording of the use of the card at that moment in time and at this place. And then, of course, I'm being watched by a security camera at the same time.
And what's very, very cool is that this entire scene is made up of shots from the security cameras.
Yes, exactly.
Not a single camera is like the fancy pants Dateline camera.
Yeah.
It's either the camera looking down. It's to show when you are going in a place that has a key card like this,
yes,
like Michelle's nursing school, you are being watched constantly.
Oh, so like the idea is that Giselle like stole this key card, right?
Right.
And we don't really know why, but they're like, why would she want like key access to the Michelle's nursing school? And so they go back into the surveillance video of the nursing school on the day the ID went missing, and fucking there's Giselle after hours in a lab coat, just like walking around in classrooms, like turning on computers.
It is wild. And like to see her, Keith kind of gives us the like, look, you can't go anywhere without being seen by the cameras. And then it's like, let's follow Giselle from and we do from location to location.
For her to be there. Like it doesn't, right? We see her room to room. It's after hours. No one's in there. It is really fucking scary to watch.
Right.
Which picked her up in the morning at the nursing school, posing as a prospective student. Well, there she stole an instructor's key card, then appeared to test whether it would work by entering this break room.
And then at 5:30 in the evening, when the campus is closed, she gains access through the back door using that electronic key card.
Same swipe card.
Yes.
She's like sneaking in back doors to get into labs. She's walking around in a lab coat. She's turning on computers. She steals a student roster with all these photos on it. And then she's walking around like pretending she's an instructor, like talking to a room full of nobody.
Yes, and she's in there for an hour and a half. It is so fucking weird.
Just sort of trying to get the lay of the land, but then stealing a student roster, which is very scary, and wearing the lab coat, whatever. So now cops, okay, this is where it gets like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Cops start talking to eyewitnesses, and they're like, wait a second. Based on conversations with eyewitnesses and the fact, remember, we've heard it 1,000 times, we're being watched constantly.
Yes, yeah.
We can follow Giselle from that moment just for the next little bit. Let's just take a journey with Giselle. Let's just see where she goes.
So it's the day after Michelle goes missing.
It's like the early in the morning, the morning after.
We see video surveillance of the inside of a fucking Apple store where Giselle is there with her daughter to unlock an iPhone. And she tells the guy, I mean, this would probably work.
Who's going to say no to this?
I know.
Because she's using her daughter.
Yes.
She's like all frantic and she's like, oh, my super adorable daughter did like press a bunch of buttons on my phone. Can you just please unlock it for me? And of course the daughter's probably there begging for attention from her mother because Giselle is not giving it to her, as we'll see as the day goes on.
I'll tell you, if I was like, Daisy, Daddy killed somebody last night and I need you to pretend that you put a number into this phone, and as soon as I do that, you get to have the phone for the rest of the day, Daisy would go along with anything.
Just don't tell her anything.
I know.
And tell her like, oh, we're going to go to the playground after we do this boring
no,
thing.
Daisy wants the phone.
Yeah.
All Daisy cares about in her life is playing with my phone.
Yeah. She'll make noise enough where the guy's like, oh my God, I just have to unlock this fucking phone.
Remember how there was like radio silence from Michelle, and then all of a sudden she's like texting everybody that is in Michelle's phone being like, I'm fine, I'm not dead, I'm not missing, I just don't want to talk to anybody, leave me alone.
Yeah.
Now we're at the Chuck E. Cheese with the unlocked phone, which we now know is Michelle's phone that Giselle has, and we see her sending those text messages.
Couple things about this. Do you or do you not know Chuck E. Cheese's real name?
No. What?
His full name is Charles Entertainment Cheese. Look it up. It's a fun fact to just sprinkle in. Charles
Entertainment Cheese.
But no. Charles is my father. I'm Chuck, please. Charles Entertainment is my father. So we see her. There are kids running around. Where the fuck is her daughter?
I know.
Her daughter is nowhere to be found in the footage with Chuck E. Cheese.
Oh my God, that's so fucking scary. Oh my God.
Remember when the cop was like, Michelle's like, oh, my phone's dead. Also, I have car trouble. Also, everything's erased. Like, everyone gets a different story.
Yeah.
We see Giselle do this because once the cop says, like, we're on to you, we know you're not Michelle, or whatever, she gets spooked.
Yeah.
And it all happens at Charles Entertainment Cheese's
at his
home, in his kingdom.
Now they're tracking Michelle's phone for the rest of the day. They see that Giselle was circling that vigil that they were having for Michelle. That's so fucking crazy.
That Hot Scott went to?
That Hot Scott went to. Then we see that she's outside Hot Scott's house. She's just driving by.
And so then the cops are like...
Richie was all but sure now Giselle had something to do with Michelle's disappearance. The question now was, did she have some help?
And this is where they're saying it has to be Hot Scott. That's the only other person connected to this. And then, as they're like, it has to be Hot Scott, late July 2011, Detective Frazier gets a call from Hot Scott, breathless, probably thinking about me.
Shirtless.
He's shirtless, I'm sure. It's 63 days after Michelle's been missing. He says he thinks he found Michelle's phone in the backseat of his fucking car.
Which is terrifying.
And he's like, I didn't do it. I swear to God. By the way, here's a restraining order I have against that crazy woman, Giselle. I can now see that it looks like we did this together, but I swear to God, it's not me.
The cops are like, sure, Jan. Let's invite us in. Coffee and donuts, please. Let's have a conversation. Thank you so much.
This is where we learn that Giselle is just out of her mind.
And then the cops are like, is he one of these dummies who's going to try to insert himself in the situation? It's going to backfire to be like, no, I didn't do it.
That is totally what I would do, by the way.
Right. But also, Giselle is 5'2" and like 4 months pregnant.
I know. But we learn that, like, Scott is really afraid of Giselle, too.
In signed declarations, both Scott and his mother told how their family was awakened early one morning by Scott's car alarm. Scott went to investigate.
And while he's out front, he hears his mother screaming. He goes inside. Giselle is inside of his house. She's inside his room, tampering with his computer.
4 days before Michelle goes missing, in the middle of the night, broke in and was like on his computer and messing with all of his computer stuff.
Trying to like make him look guilty of shit. And then we get this audio. This audio will say, if this doesn't send a shiver down your spine, you need to check yourself into some sort of bar
but
or
it's
something.
also like nothing I've ever heard in my life.
No, and so Hot Scott is so afraid of Giselle that he records this without her knowing. They're in a car and their child is in the back seat of the car. And Giselle is just saying like and the tone of her voice.
And this is 4 months before Michelle goes missing.
Yeah.
So like Giselle's been furious for a long time.
Yeah.
We are going to be honest about Michelle. Do you understand me? Whether you sleep with her, whether you share food with her, whether you talk to her, you will be honest with me. Look at me. You will be honest with me regarding her. Otherwise, I will take your life and hers. Mom. And you can take that to the grave with you.
Because according to Giselle, Scott and Michelle have been sleeping together. Do we know that that's not true?
That is not true.
How do we know?
Because everybody says so. And I know how that sounds. Just bear with me.
But she's just like, you deserve to die for your lies, as does she. This is your last warning. And I'm just like, the tone of her voice is fucking terrifying.
And because she starts like, I will take your life. She starts to whisper, and you could feel like, I don't know, Giselle. Thank God. I feel like I'm not missing much. But it's that tone where you're like, if you're Scott, it's like, her face changed. Oh my God. Like she's not fully cognizant of what's happening. And I don't know if you noticed this. As she's saying, I will take your life and you could take that with the grave, blah, blah, blah. You could hear their daughter in the back going, Mom.
I know.
She's calling for her mother sweetly. Not freaking out. But like Giselle is not here. Like she's blacked out with fury. She's fucking furious. What were the conversations like before this for Scott to be like, I'm going to record the next one?
Well, I'm glad that you said that because then we meet this other prosecutor who's involved in the case. And I didn't write his name down, but then they gave us 5 minutes of his backstory, and I was like, oh, okay.
His name is Butch Ford.
And this guy is saying, well, look.
For the better part of 6 years, she had an obsession with Michelle. Her text messages were filled with hatred towards Michelle at every step of the way. And then towards the last 4 months or so, they were filled with hatred towards Scott.
Just to really hit this point home, Giselle is threatening to kill Michelle and Scott in this call because she says, you deserve to die for your lies, as does she. If you lie to me again, that's what's going to happen.
What do you do with that? When you're like on the receiving end of that, what do you he gets a restraining order, but like that is so terrifying.
I mean,
And yes, I understand this happens to women like 99% more than it happens to men. I'm just saying in any situation, that's terrifying.
Sure. And what's even more terrifying is that if this happened 4 months before before Michelle went missing, and
Right.
Scott and Michelle were, even if they were friends, like,
Yeah.
we know that Giselle manufactured all of this. Like, they were not sleeping together.
But I do think that, like, Scott had a lot of information that he didn't bring to the cops all the while Michelle was missing.
But,
like,
what I'm saying is, he must have been telling Michelle, like, she's out for both of us,
yeah,
right?
You would hope, yeah.
So, what, like, was Michelle aware of the hatred for 4 months?
But also, my other question is, like, when Michelle went missing, did Scott go to the cops and say, like, oh, by the way, Giselle's been threatening to kill her for 6 years?
Right.
Like, what where's that disconnect?
And also, fuck the 72 hours if you have 16,000 pages of text or whatever.
So, like, the story basically breaks when Detective Frazier gets a tip from a Catholic priest.
It was actually outside of an office in a patio area. Then he asked her several times, do you want to go into a confessional? She said no. So that's why he was able to talk to us about it. And she was asking for forgiveness for something that she had not yet done.
Wait a minute. She asked for forgiveness for a sin
that's what she
hadn't committed.
That's the interpretation that the priest had got. That was roughly at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the day that Michelle went missing.
Keith can't handle it, and neither can I. So the priest is like, something super weird happened to me the other
And it happened
day.
in the courtyard at the church. It did not happen in a confessional, which is how the priest is able to go to the cops.
Right.
Although I think there is a loophole there. I think they even say to you, I was a Catholic for a long time, when you would go to confession, like, by the way, if you confess to murder, we will go to the cops.
Like, if you're going to hurt you or someone else, like the therapist law, too,
Exactly,
where it's
right.
like, if you're
Like
going to
a-
hurt yourself or,
yeah.
So all the cops are like, everybody knows she did it.
Yeah.
Like, clearly she did it, but they don't know how or
Yeah.
where, and they don't know where Michelle's body is.
And they're also able to connect Michelle and Giselle on the night Michelle went missing because they have Michelle's phone records. Remember, they're like, this is why you should search in this area. They also have Giselle's. And it's like Giselle went to exactly the same place as Michelle went at exactly the same time.
Almost like they were traveling together, but their phones were.
Right. But the big thing that happens is that
It wasn't enough until the lab results finally came back from evidence seized that very first night in Giselle Esteban's apartment, specifically from her shoes. Those tests uncovered a trace amount of blood that belonged to Michelle. Only one explanation for that.
So, like, technology's great, and we need it for help, and, like, it's always watching and listening.
Yeah.
But it really just, for this, it came down to old-fashioned blood evidence.
yeah, so they arrest her. The family is like shocked and devastated.
Also,
because
Giselle has a real attitude when she's arrested. She goes, what now? Giselle? Don't worry about it.
Yeah, exactly. Don't fucking worry about it, Giselle.
What now, she says.
And the family is shocked and devastated that, like, they're sort of confronted with the idea that Michelle is not coming back.
And the person who did it was, like, at their house all the time. They were,
Yeah.
like, family. They, you know, not like she needs to be taken in, but, you know, those big families.
Yeah.
Like, she was at every big event, every big occasion. They were, like, sisters.
And so, if you remember Carrie McGonigal, she was the lady whose daughter was murdered, Amber, and she was the one who connected the family to Mark Klass. So the family mounts one final search in that area, and she has dogs. Like, she's got cadaver dogs. That's her thing. Like, that's what she does.
Yeah, we're with a dog. We don't get her name, which, okay.
Very rude. Well, she was a dog in training, and Carrie tells us that, like...
And she was acting weird. She was jumping all over the place. She was barking, wanted to get away from me. And as I buckled her up, she took off from me and ran. And so I started running after her, and she comes back, and she jumps up on me and takes off again. I followed her, and she was just standing still.
And she goes over to see the dog, and there she sees, like, clothing and rope, and they unearth the remains of Michelle Lay.
I know. And what makes this even worse is cousin Christine hears about this from a fucking reporter.
And the reporter heard about it from somebody in the fucking search party.
That leaked it.
Show yourself.
Like,
show yourself, you motherfucker. You're in the search party and you called the press before the family found
like,
out.
you could hear the dog barking in the phone call,
Yeah.
probably. Like, this is so, like, reporters also stop fucking doing this, too. If you're
Listen,
going to be trash and leak it, that's one thing.
Wait, you think the reporter is worse than the person in the search party who leaked it?
I think when you call Christine and say, do you have any thoughts about your dead cousin, when she doesn't, you know that she can't know about
But
it
she
yet.
only knows about it because the person who was looking, like, I feel like, look, I'm not blaming
I think it's
Mark-
all bad.
I know.
That's all I'm saying.
I mean, you have to be some kind of fucking evil asshole to be in the search party and call Christine. If you got to make a phone call, call Christine.
And, like, what does that do for you?
I
You
know.
told some, like,
I know.
no one's going to give you the credit. Like,
Right.
that's the credit you want. You want your name in the paper for this horrible,
Like, is that
horrible tragedy.
why you were in the search party, you asshole? Oh my God, that made me insane.
So then the family is still struggling. They still don't believe it's her. And so they need to have the dental records confirm it. And then they can't pretend anymore. It really is Michelle.
Yeah, Yeah, and like we'll go through this quickly, but like, October 2012, Giselle goes on trial, and because there is no video of how the murder happened, like the prosecution is like hammering like Giselle did it for XYZ reason, thinking that they're gonna come back and be like, no, girl, like you don't have any evidence that it was actually me. And instead, Giselle's defense team is that like she did do it, but it was in the heat of the moment. Like it wasn't premeditated. It's not first-degree murder. It's involuntary manslaughter.
Yeah.
And that's what the whole trial becomes about, is that like, was it premeditated and it's first-degree murder, or was it in an argument and it's first-degree manslaughter? It's one or the other. She cannot get acquitted. It's either first-degree murder or manslaughter.
Because Giselle admits it.
Right.
And it's like a hush falls. So everyone's like, wait, what?
Yes.
Because she's like, oh, I killed her.
Right. She's not trying to get off. She's just trying to get a lesser sentence.
Exactly.
And so if she were to be convicted of involuntary manslaughter, she'd be out in 9 years.
Jesus.
But good news, that's not what happens.
Nope.
She gets convicted of first-degree murder. She gets life and forever in prison.
Now, Michael, Michelle's brother, and Christine, the cousin, work with Mark Klass and his organization.
Yeah.
So, like, they kind of, because it's like, let the younger generation do the work kind of moment where they're like, I'm sorry, elders.
Yeah.
Just like technology, they're like still explaining to the older parents, like, wait, the phone? How did the phone track her? And they're like, not now, Grandma. We'll tell you another time.
Oh my goodness, girl, we did what's this? What's it called?
Vanished.
It's called Vanished. You guys, if you want more information on Mark Klass's organization, how you can donate, how you can help, how you can get involved, it's classkids.org, and that's KLAAS kids, KIDS.org. Go spend some time on the website. It's an amazing thing that they're doing, helping people find their lost loved ones.
Yeah, because more people need to do it.
More people need to do it.
Just know it's going to take a lot of time, but if you have that time, if you're okay being tired, go forth and help.
Exactly. If you want more Jillian and me, join us on the Patreon. What else, girl?
That's it. That's it. I'm a little angry today, but God knows.
But you know what? You're dressed up for date night. You look like $1 million.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. We love you guys.
We love you. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye. So the cops are like, let's talk to Giselle and Michelle.
It's
okay.
very hard. And I was like, oh, all right. I just fell in my chair again.
Again?
Yes. Oh my God, this fucking chair. He always asks at least one inappropriate question.
He's like, how you doing? I'm like, not great, Keith. How do you think they're doing?
We're coming down really hard on you, Keith, but we really do love you.
Love you. And because I'm sure he had that conversation where he's like, I have to ask.
Yeah,
I have to ask you.
Keith also loves to say caught the case. He says it in every episode.
Did he say it? I thought that was just me because I was watching
he says
episodes of The Wire.
Case. He says it every time.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And that wasn't color-coded in my Keith thing in my notes, so I missed that one. That one slipped by me. I would take like a half a day's work looking into it, at the very least.
But after lunch, you got to go right back to like thinking it's something else.
Oh yeah, because you know me, 4:45. I'm already looking. I'm halfway out the door. You got to get me right before 5. The clock strikes 5. A mammal of some kind I think is what they say. I can't. So Jen, that would be helpful to me.
Let's care about all the dead people in this episode.
Yeah.
Let's care about all of them.
It would be helpful to me at the very least if you could just try to solve every single case.
Exactly.
It would really be helpful. Thank you. You can't try to solve crimes and find missing people if you enjoy your free time.
Yeah.
You need to allow it to take over your life and ruin your relationships. And just
you gotta get real comfy with a bottle of bourbon. That's just, and coffee early, like 5 a.m. black coffee.
Or whatever. You can sleep anywhere because you got to get a couple of snoozes in while you can get it.
You're all going to be stained. You're going to be sitting in your car a lot with the windows rolled up. Can we go find that woman?
I have in my notes. I hope you told somebody about it, Michael, the PI.
I know. It's unbelievable. Like that woman might still be in the basement somewhere.
That he's like, oh, damn it. It's not her. All right, moving on. No.
No.